Good morning. Today is going to be a little bit more relaxed, I think. There's a couple small things I want to talk about just because I was thinking about it last night and I saw a couple tweets on my timeline about it. And the people who tweeted it aren't going to see it, so it's almost irrelevant at that point, but what happens and what do you do when you're feeling broken and lost? That's not a simple answer. It's not a fun answer. It's really, really hard. I haven't been really broken or lost in a while. It's been about a year now since I was really lost and broken, since I sat on the floor of my bathroom crying my eyes out for the first time in ages because I made a bunch of very large mistakes. And I'm doing my best to own up to them, and it's really hard. I hope you if you are able to own up to those mistakes when you're broken and lost and not try and play it off, you have a whole lot of strength. So give yourself some credit there. And if you can't, try. You're a lot stronger than you think. The human will is extremely powerful. Anyway, back to the point. What do you do when you're feeling broken and lost? The first thing I think you have to remember is kind of a state of humanity thing, which is that broken people do broken things, and you can't change that. It's really, really hard to wrap your head around that at the beginning, I think. But once you really wrap your head around the fact that if you're broken, you're going to do broken things, and that other people, if they're broken, will do broken things, you can kind of resolve some of that feeling of being broken and being lost, because you realize that A, you're not alone, B, the other person, or whatever happened, the other person in the situation is probably just as broken as lost as you are in some function, and C, that you can become unbroken. Because if broken people do broken things, then there are plenty of people out there doing good things. So figure out where you are. You're not broken. You are broken. You're just lost, and being broken isn't a bad thing. Being broken means that you've been through something that is actually traumatic. And it doesn't, nobody gets to tell you what traumatic is. That's something that you also need to remember. If you go through something that's absolutely traumatic for you because of a certain set of circumstances, and somebody else looks at you and says, oh, that's not horrible, that's not traumatic, you can't be broken from that, you basically get to turn to them and say, screw you. You don't know exactly what happened. Now, of course, there is a certain extent to which that isn't true, but there are things that we can become emotionally invested in that just make that true, right? A breakup, the loss of a pet, the loss of a family member, etc. Like these things can break us and make us feel like we're lost. And it's okay, because trauma does that. And then you need to resolve yourself, resolve the issues of that trauma at some point. Now what do you do when you're broken? Not just what happens when you're feeling broken and lost, but what do you do? My first step, and this is where I'll get into a little bit of personal anecdotes because I can't speak for everybody. I read a lot. I listened to a lot of podcasts. I like Jordan Peterson and listening to people like Joko Willink and family members and friends and long discussions at night. Basically doing things that made me feel wanted by somebody, or that made me realize I had far more potential than I was exercising at the moment. Now you can find that in motivational speakers. You can find that in religion. Not all religion, but religion, You can find it in a lot of things. But I would submit to you that the first and foremost thing that you need to do is realize that grief and shame are issues within brokenness, and you need to not be ashamed. You can have grief, you can be frustrated, you can feel like you've lost something, but the moment you let that become shame, let me define shame here real quick too. Shame is the state of being in which something bad happens either to you or because of you, and you take that upon yourself and say, I am shamed because I am the thing which I did. Not grief, which is this thing happened and I am upset, sad, and broken because of it. I throw broken in there because that's kind of what we're talking about, not necessarily because you have to be broken to be in grief, you know? So breathe in and make sure you're not in the pit of shame. Because if you are, you need to get out of it. That's like the first step. So second step, I already kind of talked about realizing that other people are, like, if people are broken, they're going to do broken things. And that kind of is still applicable. But you need to step up from that and go, I refuse to continue being broken in this area so that I can do and lead a healthy life and healthy relationships and healthy other things so that I can be there for other people. I think at some level, when you're feeling broken, you have to like inherently get out of a selfish mindset, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying you're being selfish. That I want that to be very, very clear. But to get out of that, it is extremely beneficial to realize that you are of worth and of value. And sometimes that comes through doing things for other people that they don't expect or necessarily want you to do, I guess. That you don't have to do. There's the better term, right? Whether that's going out to dinner with a friend and paying for dinner, whether that's, babysitting and enjoying your time with the kids, whether that's sitting down and partly like what I'm doing now, articulating what you think and believe so that somebody else can gain and benefit from it. Right? Now, if I was to get into my personal religious beliefs about this, my theology and all of these other collections, this video would be super long. So if you have any questions about that in regards to, Christianity or Judeo-Christian thought, whatever, you can DM me or whatnot. Because that goes even further into this idea. But anyway, back to and what else do you have to do to rise above brokenness? I think I want to say the biggest thing is remember that just because you're down, you're not beaten. Like, there is something about this world that is horrible sometimes. It's horrendous. It's painful. It's like, to quote, I'm gonna paraphrase Peterson a little bit here in two different sections of some of his stuff. The first one is that life is a horrible, horrendous disease and it kills you every time. And secondly, is that you're not a golden tool. You're not meant to fix everything. You can't go, unless you're trained for it, right? You can't grab a wrench and go to a military helicopter and fix it by yourself. You're not that knowledgeable. You're not that trained in certain things. Like those are the helicopter in this sense is referring to the problems of the world and the problems of brokenness in people. You are not that golden wrench to fix that. And remember that. Because if you put that responsibility on yourself, you will continue feeling broken because you'll be trying to do things that are literally nearly impossible for you to do. So to rise above the brokenness, you have to remember that not everything is possible for you, and that's okay. Like, I wasn't born to be a sumo wrestler, Like, I don't have the frame. I don't have the build. I don't have like I don't want to eat that much either. Like, you know, but I don't have those skill sets naturally, inherently, right? But I have other skill sets that allow me to do what I'm doing better. I have a natural inclination for music. I have a natural inclination to care about other people more than myself, etc. So when you're in that place of brokenness, don't try to do things you know you're not good at. That's different between stretching yourself, like I talked about in my last video, and like pushing for your goals and dreams. But you can't let that sit there and be the deciding factor and say, oh, just because I can't do something I want, I'm broken and I'm lost. Breathe. You don't have to do everything, and you're not responsible for everything. You're responsible for you and the decisions you make, and in some function, yes, the situations that you create that put other people in decision-making situations. But they're still responsible for their actions. You're responsible for your actions, and don't confuse the two. Because somebody else does something broken as a result of like things you did doesn't mean that you were broken as well. Okay? If you're currently in a state of brokenness, you have the ability to get out. And if you can't do it by yourself, get help. And if a friend doesn't work, get some professional help. Because literally gonna get heavy once again at the end of this video, and then we'll be done. I don't want to get a phone call or see on Twitter or my Facebook that somebody committed suicide and I have to go to their funeral because they didn't get help, or they didn't hear something, or somebody wasn't there for them. That is literally I've been to that funeral. Like, I've been there. I've been to that funeral. I don't ever want to go again. Ever in my life. I watched it tear up my best friend. I watched it tear up his wife. I watched it tear up his daughters. I watched it tear up my friend, and then us, because we had to help and we had to be there. I don't ever want to be there again. So if you need help, get it. I don't want like being in a state of brokenness doesn't mean there's no way out. You have hope. Okay? Get some. Please, for the love of God, for the love of all that is holy in this world and your own being, get help. It's okay to feel broken and lost, but it's not okay to stay there. When you're broken, remember that you are valuable and that other people do want you there. Like you can change the world, and you do on a daily basis, even in small ways that you don't realize are going to be large in time. Are the little seeds. And when you want to rise above the brokenness, remember that you can get help, and remember that your will, that human will, is supremely powerful, and that your worth and value is infinitely beyond that which you could actually imagine to the other people around you that care for you. And if you can't see it, then honestly, find new friends. Family isn't all blood, and if they're not willing to help, find people who will. Thank you for listening. I love you all. If you need anything, I'm always here. I'll talk to you guys later.